Sunday, it's movie Sunday, so superhero Sunday, so don't forget that. Well, so here's the thing, man. You got to check this out. We have somebody in here that wrote a book. It's online. Some of y'all that are on our page have seen it, but it's called The Heart of a Warrior, The Warrior's Heart. I might have that turned around, The Warrior's Heart. And he is helped, you know, if I'm out of town, you know, he's up here teaching, and I appreciate him and his family, his awesome family, and all. They've been faithful to the church since we've begun. So I want to give a warm Mosaic welcome to Chris Edwards. Come on up, come on up. And if you have not downloaded this book, it's a deal right now. You can get it for 99 cents right now. And we need to, you know, if you're a part of Mosaic, you need to get this brother's book, support him, and do that. And so I'm excited to have Chris. I think he's going to share some stuff from the book. Just share the Warrior's Heart. And you going to break anything or do anything? No, okay. All right, brother. Well, here you go, Chris.
Entrepreneurship and living your dream life go hand in hand. We start out with high hopes and blissful expectations. But what do you do when your dream life becomes a nightmare? My entrepreneurial spark became a full-blown inferno back in 2007. I was going to launch my business at all costs. And there was one hobby that I'd done my entire life: martial arts. I held multiple black belts. I won numerous state championships, regional, even 2 national championships. I've broken 2 world records. I don't say any of that to brag, just to simply state that even if you're really good at something, on paper an expert, failure can still creep into your life somehow. It can still creep into your heart. See, I began here at Mosaic with this endeavor. Tim had my back from the get-go. At our old building back on Market Street. Some of you in this room have been with us even back in those days. Some of you, we met in this building. But my tale began at our old building. I started a demonstration team, performing with certain movie outreaches and then just doing demonstrations outright. Many of you remember those. Building a demonstration team, teaching for free. And that planted the seed to actually start my business. Started teaching once or twice a week at some local Christian private schools. I grew my student body, and then I finally moved into my own location. If any of you have ever started a business, getting your own place, there's just something special about that. You get excited. To me, I was really stoked, but it was a transition. It wasn't the end-all, be-all. It wasn't what I had envisioned as the master plan. It was a stepping stone. Had many great years there. I poured my heart and soul into every class I ever taught. I was just all in. Kind of extreme that way. I was all in. That was where God was leading me, to pour into people, into my students. I gave courage to people who were fearful, self-defense for those who were bullied, direction for those who were directionless, fitness for the flabby, and even being a bright light into some of the darkest souls I ever met. So I was all in. But I knew I needed to expand to get to where I wanted with the business. And then I had my first shoulder surgery. 6 anchors in my right humerus. Then I had a year later my left shoulder. 7 anchors into my humerus bone. So I was teaching classes with one hand in a sling. I was teaching people to use their entire body while I had partial use of my own. So imagine if you're a teacher and you have no more use of your voice, but you've got to command the room. Imagine if you're a nurse, but you can't remember medical terms. Imagine if you're an accountant and can't do basic math. That's where I found myself on a daily basis, trying to empower others while being partially crippled in the moment. But it made me a better problem solver, and I pushed on. I strove through that. My wife Mandy nearly died in childbirth. We started amassing ridiculous amounts of medical debt. So going to martial arts school, plus having medical debt, it doesn't add up too well. It doesn't match together, right? Nonetheless, we pushed on. I began planning. I searched over a year to find this larger location. It was going to be the ticket to make body martial arts go viral, expand. It was going to blow up the whole city. I expanded my search into everywhere you could think. I tried to find a place that had larger square footage, better road frontage, and was a killer deal on monthly lease. I secured funding from a loan, signed the lease, we forged on. And that's when the floodgates of opposition just started smashing me and my family. The build out took 4 months longer. We missed peak season. The thousands of dollars I spent on advertising produced a trickle of new enrollments. Half of my students who claimed they were going to stay with me left and didn't train anymore. I hired an instructor that was a terrible addition to the team, constantly bad-mouthing me behind my back. And right before we moved, I tore my ACL. We still made it. We pushed through. I tried to make everything happen as smoothly as possible. Had my ACL surgery, got through summer camp, and fall of 2014, it hit me like a ton of bricks. That's when the sheer dread and panic surrounded me. I was on a sinking ship. My business, my passion, my very essence that I poured into on a daily basis was failing. It was like a million holes in this boat. I couldn't plug them. All the capital was gone. It was a nightmare. I couldn't breathe from the sheer panic. I felt like I'd let down my mentors. Like I'd let down my students. Let down my children, my wife, myself. I even let down God. I felt worse than you could imagine feeling. I felt like the most worthless protein skin sack ever to walk the earth. It was as if Thor was resting his hammer on my chest. I couldn't move. The only way that I can describe what I went through was soul castration. How do you go on when you've poured everything you are into your dream? Now it's a nightmare. But on the very last day in the building, everything was cleared out. All the equipment was out, except for the training mats. I was in there with my headphones on, listening to the track from The Dark Knight Rises. Dishi, dishi, basara, basara, dishi, dishi, basara, basara. It's the scene where Bruce Wayne is in the prison of despair that Bane put him in. You could escape, but only one had ever escaped. Many had fallen to their death. He tried several times as Bruce Wayne, the man, not Batman, the superhero, with ropes attached to him, and he couldn't escape. And he finally had to come to the point to where he climbed it without ropes, without a safety net. He was willing to die to try again, to be free from that. And it was as if God just whispered a small seed of hope in one of the worst days of my entire life. With tears streaming down my face, I just wanted to crawl up in a cave and die. I didn't want to live anymore. How could I ever gain success again in my life in anything if the thing I was best at, I failed at? Accept your failure. See, failure in the dictionary just simply means lack of success. That sounds kind of docile, doesn't it? Lack of success. Okay, we had lack of success. We can go on with that. But what about if someone comes up to you and says, "You failed"? Oh, that will bristle us up instantly. We don't like that, and we will buck that immediately. Or swallowing the pill to say, I failed at something. That just doesn't compute with us. We don't want to step into that territory. And even to this day, there is a big taboo in the ethos of failing and depression. What we often do is sugarcoat it. We say, oh, little buddy, you didn't fail. It's all right. You'll get them next time. It was a good learning experience. Oh, you tried your best. I personally hate those with that much intensity. I'm a high achiever, and if I go all out at something and I don't make the goal, it infuriates me inwardly. So failing is like a worst case scenario. It's my mental hellish prison. And honestly, in business, failure is inevitable, right? The Small Business Association, the SBA, claims that in 2 years, 30% of all businesses will fail, startups. 5 years, 50%. And in 10 years, nearly 70% of all businesses are supposed to fail, according to the numbers. So you look at the data, and yeah, it's normal that my business failed. But there's something that happens when failure creeps into your very soul. It affects you. It puts you in this turtle shell that you don't even want to try again. When you find yourself in that bad place where you don't want to even get up, you can't even breathe, you think your life is over, your business has crumbled, you don't find much in your pockets, but you might find a coin. Call this the acceptance coin. On one side of this coin, it's admittance, admitting what role that you played in your own failure. That is a bad pill to swallow. It's going to be our toughest one in our time together today. Admitting what you did to contribute to the failure. We don't like that. We want to play the victim card and blame everyone else. But if you can look in the mirror and say, yes, I had those thoughts, I said those words, and I made those choices, it's very freeing to admit every single thing you did to contribute to the failure.
Amen.
But on the flip side, you have forget. Admit and forget. Because in any failure of this level, of this magnitude, there's going to be things that occur that are out of your control. I could have just been eat up with anger at the city workers who wouldn't grant the permit on the build out of the building that made the 4 months occur, right? I could just dwell on that and loop in my brain forever. We can't control what people say and do. We can maybe influence them, but in the end, it's out of our hands. So if we let go and release what is out of our hands, what we couldn't control, coupled with admitting what we did do to cause this failure, is so freeing. You keep this coin in your pocket. You think on it, dwell on it, and it will allow freedom from failure to begin. Separate your identity. Well, now the elephant in the room is, okay, if I admit I failed, doesn't that now mean I'm a failure? See, that's the root of this. We don't want to admit we failed because we think that it's now going to brand a permanent F on our hearts. It's going to label us. We're big into labeling a problem, labeling a situation, and we don't want labels on us, especially that can define us. It can set our course for the rest of our life. If we view ourselves as a failure, we won't want to try anything. We'll just be numb and let life happen to us. A year out from graduating from UTC, second week in June of 2006, I began working at a well-known rental car agency. A couple of you in this room even rented cars from me back in the day. Pastor Tim did. Nathan, shout out. So I loved it there. It was a perfect environment for me. And I remember my boss Rick came to me and said, "You're a sharp guy." He had this really deep voice, hilarious laugh. "You know, buddy, if you can go all out the rest of this month, you can make the MVP dinner." And I was like, "What's the MVP dinner?" "It's the award ceremony for the top performers in the whole region. The top 10 have over 100 MTs, manager trainees." So he spoke life into me, and I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I just went beast mode and won that for 7 months in a row. I also won the 110 Club, the top salesman in the region, for 7 months in a row. I was the top performing golden boy. I felt unstoppable. It was like everything I touched was gold. I passed their big test, the Management Qualification Index, meaning I was now ready to be a leader in the organization. In about 11 months, I got promoted. I celebrated. You know that feeling when you work and work and work and work and you achieve that goal? That satisfaction, it's nothing like it, especially when you work really hard for something. I had that satisfaction. I felt amazing. But then I get a call from HR. Probably not my favorite department in organizations, if I'm honest. "Hey, buddy, you're on probation now. You have too many speeding tickets. One more vehicle infraction, and you'll be fired." Well, I shrugged it off. I'm like, whatever, I'll just slow down. Okay. I didn't think much about that. I'm getting settled in. Well, the branch manager, she's getting married that week, and the assistant branch manager, the other one, he's getting a big vacation now ready for his family. So that first Friday, my area manager asked me, I said, "Are you sure you can handle this all by yourself?" Normally there's supposed to be 3 managers on duty, and Fridays are insane at a rental car agency. I'm a maniac. Sure, I can handle that. No big deal. That day I was renting cars to pastors, soldiers, CEOs, soccer moms, drug dealers, everyone you could imagine. Even my ex-girlfriend's sister that hated my guts, she even came to rent a car for me. Everybody was there. I got everybody a car. But I kept us over. You know, we were supposed to close at 6. I kept us there till 7:45. And the last customer of the day was waiting patiently. I'd already sent the entire staff home. I get in the car, I back it up. I backed into a gate. My heart sank. How did I back into a gate? The thing is open all day. How did I do this? Well, unbeknownst to me, one of the car preps had half closed the gate. And I created a little horseshoe of damage. $250 at the most. I rented the car out. I didn't mention anything about it. I sent him on his way. But all weekend long, it tore me up. I was praying about it, thinking about every scenario. So at the time, I knew I was on a path to become a GM of a group. They were making about $1 to $2 million annually. They're over an entire state. There's like 50 different franchises, per state. That was the path that I was on. But if I would lie about this little small thing, I knew that I could justify lying about stealing $1 million from the company one day. But it was so easy to cover up. I had the power. I could just say it was lot damage. But my subconscious knew I couldn't do that. So Monday, I called my area manager and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." He came over, told him what happened. He steps away and calls my good buddies at HR. "You're instantly fired." My heart sank. And of all days, I'd locked my keys in my apartment. I was living in our old building where I used to teach martial art at, off of Market Street. We had church, nightclub, a dojo, and my apartment. I locked my keys that morning, and my mom had taken me to work. My boss just fired me, and now he gets to take me back home. That's way before the days of Uber. So imagine the awkwardness in this car ride. I'm trying to hold the tears back. We're not listening to music. We're just sitting there. Couldn't they take into account of all the sales I'd made? Couldn't they bend that stupid policy because it was in my personal vehicle? Couldn't they see that most employees wouldn't have told the truth, and I did, even though I knew it was probably going to harm me? It's not fair. It's not fair that I'm not as tall as he is. It's not fair that I don't have as big as muscles as he does. It's not fair that she got the promotion when I did all the work. It's not fair that his business survived and mine didn't. It's not fair I wasn't born in the right family. It's not fair I don't have the right resources. It's not fair. It's true. None of it's fair. We can cry about this fact. We can dwell on it, or we can accept it. For high achievers, failing is the worst. There's nothing worse than that. And if we don't ever deal with it, failure becomes like a cancer, like a succubus on our soul, like it's mending with our DNA. If you don't deal with it, it stays there. Today, I look at myself as a failure survivor, because it did almost cost me my life. I was 100% suicidal. I begged for death. I even cried out to God. It was a dark place. When you find yourself in that dark place, you might have a pocket knife on you. You pull this pocket knife out, and it can transform into a scalpel of truth. You're going to take this pocket knife, and you're going to cut that tumor out. That tumor of the cancerous failure, all the fear of trying again, all the results of your past failures, and all of the perceptions you think others are seeing in your failure. You can cut this out and truly be free from failure. Define your desire. What do you want? And for this section, I need some help. I need a couple. Any couples want to volunteer? I need some help up here, guys. James and Beth, you guys are proximity. Y'all want to come up here? We're going to do a little role play. Nothing what you're thinking, but I need some help. All right. We're going to play out a scenario that we might have seen before. All right, James, if you could read that out loud for us.
Where do you want to go eat on our date?
You could read yours out.
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. The dreaded response. I don't know. We're so frustrated now. Beth could be mad that James didn't know what she was thinking. James is mad because Beth won't decide. Just pick somewhere. And it's a big loop. But it's not Beth's fault for answering, I don't know. It's a loaded question. He's asking to come up with something out of nothing. Should we go on an outside? Should we go inside? Should we do dinner movie? It's too complicated. So let's try it with a little bit more oomph to it. Maybe we'll have some success with our next try.
Do you want to go to Milk and Honey or the Hot Chocolator?
You pick.
Mexican.
Well, we actually have one of these. So, if you don't know what you want, maybe you can get some outside opinions. Where do you guys want to go?
Hot Chocolator.
All right, I'll let you hold on to this. Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy your day at the Hot Chocolatier. So this dialogue is occurring up here between our ears. I don't know. I want to be rich. I want to be better looking. I want to be fit. I want to be with somebody who makes me happy. I want to travel the world. It's fake BS. That's never going to happen. None of it. It's just wishing and thinking, half-hearted prayers. Oh, I wish these things could happen to me. It's like Eeyore moping around, wishing his life would get better. It's vague. But in figuring out what we want in our soul, sometimes we've got to take a backwards approach. Sometimes we've got to pull the Sharpie out and put a big, giant N-O on a choice. Is milk and honey a bad place to go to? Mm-mm. It's awesome. But they just put a big, giant N-O on milk and honey for their next date. Not permanently, not forever, but for that moment. This is where we get tricked in life a lot of times. We want to say yes to everything. We want to be nice to people's face. We want to agree. We don't want conflict. And it bleeds down into our very souls. Oh, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, let me think about it. Turns into, okay, I ended up doing it, but I really didn't want to. Then we're frustrated and bitter and not enjoying ourselves and not in the moment. But if you say a definite, strong no, just for that moment, on a choice, it's so freeing and empowering. You don't have to think, oh, well, maybe we should do both. We don't have to justify our choice. And if you think about in a career, what makes you almost nauseated, like you want to throw up, a job that you would hate to the utmost intensity? Professionally, that's pretty easy to come up with. I know what one thing Pastor Tim couldn't handle. If he had to wear a black suit, black tie, and sit at a desk all day long, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. He couldn't handle it. He wouldn't want that. Find what you hate in a career. When it comes, if you're single, what type of person just makes your blood boil? You couldn't even stand to be on one date with a person like that. You just, you couldn't even have a conversation. Just saying hello sickens you. It's easy to find what we hate, but it's much, much harder to go a little deeper. Because many of us are in the boat, well, I know that I want to have growth in my life. I want to see God move in me some type of way. I want to maybe follow a dream, but I don't really know. We're in that middle ground state. We find ourselves in the bad place. We pick up our acceptance coin because we've accepted our failures. We admit and we forget. We find a pocket knife and we cut out that wretched, cancerous failure tumor to separate our identity. We define our desire by sitting up, standing up, and taking a couple steps. Then we find that I'm barefoot. This road kind of feels rough. This is tough. Life will beat you up. I need some new shoes. Depth and detail. So new shoes, depth and detail. When you go deeper, you might find things pop up. They may have always popped up and you just stuff them back down. You always loved art, but you quit drawing in the 7th grade. You may have always wanted to travel the world, but after that one mission trip, you never went again. You just scoff at it. Maybe a trauma is there. Maybe an abuse that you suffered. You haven't let God heal you from. You just stuff it back down. But when you go deep, your purpose is sitting down there at the bottom. The reason you're on this earth is sitting down there at the bottom. If you dig deep, it pops up for you. When you get detailed, you begin to think about, well, what constantly laps my subconscious? I keep vividly seeing myself starting this company, checking this bucket list item off, growing my marriage to a place of intimacy I never thought possible. It keeps lapping around. Maybe you've had a vision of it. Maybe you keep dreaming about it, but you don't take action. Well, the key to our shoes is to actually walk in them. Every day, every moment. Depth, detail. Take some steps in your new shoes. Unleash your true identity. When I was a little boy, I always got in trouble. I probably set records for the most suspensions and principal visits in my elementary school. I've been stubborn my whole life. I hate the oppressiveness of authority. I want to do what I want to do. And now my child has taken my banner. I always had poor grades, barely passed, always had poor conduct, but my identity was attached to what I did extracurricular-wise. I was a great athlete with soccer, with martial arts, so I kind of got a weird pass sometimes. Some of the teachers knew I had something in me, but they were repulsed to have to deal with me. And I'm old enough, I'm the last generation that spent 6th grade in elementary school. Not middle school, my 6th grade was spent in elementary school. And we had a speech contest. Every 6th grade class participated. The winner of each class would go on to give their speech in front of the entire school. The winner of the school, the city, and the city winner would represent the state. And it was an international figure of prominence. I picked Nelson Mandela. Even at 12, his story just spoke to me. It was powerful. And my mom helped me write this bad boy out. I practiced for weeks. It was like a 7-minute speech. You want to hear it? All right, I got to channel my pubescent self. Jailed, beaten, falsely accused. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison for a bogus crime. Their jaws dropped. I got a standing ovation. I crushed it. They couldn't understand how that was possible. I was terrible academically. But to me, it was normal. I just set out to crush the speech. It was exactly what I planned to do. Everyone kept coming up to me. See, the whole auditorium was filled with the whole student body. All the parents were there. They even had news crews. They kept saying, "Man, you won. That was amazing." But I got runner-up. You can't have the bad boy representing your school on that high of a level, right? So it's not going to be fair. It's not going to be right sometimes. It's not going to be perfect. Perfectionism can keep you from even taking one step. You can't get caught up in the results. You got to just walk sometimes. You got to just try. You can't let a result define who you're meant to be for your whole life. And many of you may be thinking, well, there is this thing I've always wanted to do. In UK, there was a study done a few years back. They followed a palliative care deathbed nurse for over a year, and she would interview the dying. They had weeks, days, maybe months left. Those that were definitely dying, terminally ill. And they would always ask, "What's your biggest regrets?" And the two most popular answers by far were not living a life true to who you were made to be, and not being bold enough to pursue your dreams and aspirations. I want us to take ourselves to our deathbeds. We're 106 years old, grandkids, great-grandkids. Lived a long life, amazing memories. But can you face death without going for it? You know what I'm talking about. Many of you have something in you that either has to be expressed. There's just this seed in us. God plants. Let it grow. It takes courage. It's scary. And it's so easy to say, "I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll start sometime." Can you really face death without going for it? Is any excuse really valid? Maybe you're thinking, well, I would love to be a blogger. I would love to start this business. I would love to travel the world, but I'm just kind of plain. I don't really have all these cool, awesome skills like my friends do. I don't know what difference I could really make. You might just see yourself as plain old vanilla ice cream. But if you take a bowl and you add chocolate chips and sprinkles and slices of banana and walnuts and almonds, fudge sauce, chocolate sauce, whipped cream, cherries on top, if you just add all of those in a bowl and eat them straight up, it's kind of weird. It's missing something. It's missing its glue, the vanilla ice cream. You put them all together, it's a yummy treat. It soothes the meanest of us, eating a good bowl of ice cream. But it's that vanilla ice cream. You don't think you're anything special, but you're the base. You make others around you better. And if you're still trying to identify what this is, think of something that your whole life you've been able to do maybe better than other people, maybe effortlessly, and people comment, wow, you're really good at this, or you're really good at that, but you just slough it off, it's just regular. It's just no big deal. That's that seed that's planted in you. There's something that makes you unique. Somebody will call it your mojo, or the sauce. You got the sauce? Your zone of genius, they talk about in a marketing sense. Your differentiator as a business. So your vanilla ice cream, if you're a business, has this smell. Your customers find it irresistible, that taste, that they have to have some more of it again and again. It's your uniqueness, because each of us are very unique. And we find ourselves in the bad place. We're trying to rise up out of it. We pick up our acceptance coin at accepting our failure. We take our pocket knife and we cut that cancerous tumor of failure away. We get up and take a few steps and put our new shoes on of depth and detail to define our desire. Now, to unleash our true self, we find that our innermost confident, sexy beast, unstoppable faith, best version of ourselves is bound up. The ropes of failure are binding us ever so tightly. It's this three-stranded cord of that fear of failure that stops us from taking action. It's the results of your past failures. You can quantify it and see, yes, I failed in so many areas. And you think about the perception of others. What if I try and I fail? That cord is tight and it is strong, but your knife is razor sharp. You've got to sever the cord. You've got to cut many, many places and free your inner, most confident, beastly, best self. You've got to step out of the darkness and into the light and realize you're a true victor. You are victorious. You've defeated failure. You are unstoppable. Embrace your victory. Think of Wakanda. Wakanda forever. Embrace your victory. My victory is right here, right now. Being in this moment, pouring my heart out. See, I've always had raw talent to speak, even as a kid. I would even go with my grandmother as a little bitty boy to help her clean her church. But I was terrible at cleaning, but I was fascinated by the microphone. It's been in me ever since I was little. And I've spoken many, many times over the last 10, 15 years. I've always secretly desired to travel the world, to speak to thousands, tens of thousands. But it's so difficult to do speaking as a profession. It's so hard to even start. There's so many hoops to jump through, so many connections to build. It takes such a long time to start this business. In my arrogance, I said I can talk to anyone about anything. I'm good at speaking. I thought just because in my mind I'm going to be a speaker that the whole world will just stop on its axis and start booking me everywhere. Oh yeah, you're a speaker, come on. And I got frustrated. I looked at all my failures. I almost gave up. I had a steadfast career. I was a store operations manager of a local grocery store, making $80K a year. I could retire doing that. But every day I wanted to blow my brains out and hated it with an utmost intensity. I couldn't stand it. It was torture every moment. And I knew the only way to stay there for a career was to die to my dreams. And I realized I would much rather die trying than live letting my dreams die. But the biggest shift that God gave me mentally was the why. When you find what it is, you must ask yourself why. My aha moment, my why was, it's not about me speaking. It doesn't matter anything about me anymore. It's about who hears this message and who's transformed by it. Because I know there's a hidden subculture of this taboo of failure and depression. It's a silent killer. People commit suicide every day because they're ashamed. And that is my why. To speak that even when you've been in the worst that you could handle mentally, you can't really share it with people. You don't even know how to. Even when you've been in a place where death was whispering to you, you can come back from that. You're unstoppable because your worth isn't tied to the results of failure. That's the power. And that wakes me up every day. I'm excited because somebody might make someone else's life better. Somebody might design a product that changes the whole earth. Somebody might be bold enough to live the life that God has set out for them to do. That's what excites me, and that's why I speak. That is my victory. But see, it's not just the moment. It's not the finish line. I'll never reach the elusive finish line. Because embracing your victory is a daily activity. There's never going to be a one great moment and you're done riding off in the sunset the rest of your life. This is a lifestyle. We've all heard of David and Goliath. It's one of the most epic underdog stories. It is the epic underdog story in Scripture. In the secular world, most people even know this story. And we always focus on Goliath as a giant. He was 9 feet tall, a double-sized man. That is alone scary enough. But one little tidbit we don't often think about was his skill level. He would be like a trained Navy SEAL in our thinking nowadays. He was a trained killer. He was crushing skulls before David was born. He was an expert killer, plus a double-sized giant, literally. So that's the worst case opponent you could ever go to combat with. It's terrible odds, not just because of the size. And David walks into his nation's army and just sees the fear seizing his countrymen and was disgusted by it. A little teenager disgusted by what he saw. When he commented about it, he got hate from his brothers. What are you doing, you little runt? Get out of here. But he couldn't shake it. He wasn't asked. He volunteered. Who's this big clown-looking idiot challenging everybody? Why are y'all scared? So he goes up and volunteers. He says, I'll take the job. Well, the king says, well, let me see your resume, son. Well, I've killed a bear that could have taken my life because he was trying to get my sheep. And I did this to a lion. I killed a bear and a lion. Who's this big idiot is just the same to me. God's on my side. I'll take him on. I'll challenge him. Fine. The secret ingredient that David had was his faith. Man, it was so powerful. We look at what's ahead of us as a big mountain, as an Everest. Everest has claimed people's lives. It's too big to scale. There's so many excuses why we can't do it. When David looked at his Everest, which was a giant, what's going on up here? He had a secret weapon that we don't often think about. You know what his secret weapon was? What is our secret weapon? Disrespect. Disrespect. Oh, you idiot. You failed in the past. I knew you were going to fail again. You always fail. You're never going to get in shape. You keep eating donuts. Why are you even looking at business stuff? You're going to fail again. Oh, look at her over there. Yeah, she got the promotion. She probably slept her way to the top. I deserve it. I worked harder. Now, I don't mean disrespecting ourselves. I don't mean disrespecting others. That's what it's like honey to our lips. That just comes naturally. I don't mean that at all. I mean disrespect the obstacle. That's insane. Why would you disrespect a trained killer that's double any other man? That's craziness. And we may have our dream worked up so much in our head that it seems impossible. Disrespect your giant, disrespect your mountain. We find ourselves in that bad place. We accept the failure. We pull out our coin, admit it, and forget it. We separate our identity. We pull out our pocket knife, cut that cancerous tumor of failure out of our soul. We define our desire. We put our new shoes on, depth and detail. We go deeper. We get more vivid. We unleash our true self, that inner sexy beast of confidence, of boldness. We cut the ropes of failure and we embrace our victory. Because now the pocket knife has become a sword, because our words are powerful. We're going to strike the mountain over and over and over. We're going to keep striking the Everest that seems impossible because we are victorious. It is a moment by moment. We keep striking the mountain until it crumbles and crumbles and crumbles and becomes a speed bump. Step out of the light. We are victorious. We are unstoppable because failure is not who we are. God made us to be greater than any failure that will ever occur. Turn to your neighbor to your left and right. Shake their hand. You are victorious. You are free from failure. Make your moment. What about it now?